Tulsi caught Pete Buttigieg with a haymaker, dog. Oh man. Look. Let's talk about it, peeps. Thanks for tuning into this segment of Mikasa and Sukasa. All right, so the Democratic debates took place the other night, and Tulsi Gabbard was actually sick, and she didn't get to talk that much. Of course, she was cut off a lot. She was raising her hand, didn't get to talk, and she had actually been gunning for Buttigieg all night. I don't know how many of you could see it. I know I was watching on both streams, so I saw it, and her husband confirmed what I thought I saw. Every time Pete Buttigieg decided to go on a tirade about how great he was as mayor, Tulsi actually tried to challenge him on it. And when she raised her hand, I don't know if you all remember this, Warren was able to speak. However, Tulsi was ignored. And then when she raised her hand even higher, they actually just decided to switch subjects and then go back to Warren again. Well, as you know by now at this point, this is Tulsi's fourth debate. And if that's what you're going to do, if you're the moderator, then Tulsi's going to take the question that you ask her and give you the middle finger and say what she wants to say. And that's exactly what happened to Pete Buttigieg. So let's take a look at this clip of Tulsi Gabbard challenging Pete Buttigieg on his record.
But I want to get back to Pete Buttigieg and his comment about experience. Pete, you'll agree that the service that we both have provided to our country as veterans by itself does not qualify us to serve as commander-in-chief. I think the most recent example of your inexperience in national security and foreign policy came from your recent careless statement about how you as president would be willing to send our troops to Mexico to fight the cartels. As commander-in-chief, leader of our armed forces, I bring extensive experience serving for 7 years in Congress, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services Committee, on the Homeland Security Committee, meeting with leaders of countries around the world, working with military commanders of different commands, dealing with high-level national security briefings, understanding what's necessary, the preparation that I've gotten to walk in on day one to serve as Commander-in-Chief.
Congresswoman, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll allow you to respond.
I know that it's par for the course in Washington to take remarks out of context, but that is outlandish even by the standards of today's politics.
Are you saying that you didn't say that?
I was talking about U.S.-Mexico cooperation. We've been doing security cooperation with Mexico for years, with law enforcement cooperation and a military relationship that could continue to be developed with training relationships, for example. Do you seriously think anybody on this stage is proposing invading Mexico?
That's not what I said.
I'm talking about building up alliances. And if your question is about experience, let's also talk about judgment. One of the foreign leaders you mentioned meeting was Bashar al-Assad. I have, in my experience, such as it is, whether you think it counts or not, since it wasn't accumulated in Washington, enough judgment that I would not have sat down with a murderous dictator like that.
Congresswoman Gabbard, let me allow you to respond.
Thank you. You were asked directly whether you would send our troops to Mexico to fight cartels, and your answer was yes. The fact checkers can check this out. No. But your point about judgment is absolutely correct. Our commander-in-chief does need to have good judgment. And what you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure the peace and national security of our nation. I take the example of those leaders who have come before us, leaders like JFK, who met with Khrushchev, like Roosevelt, who met with Stalin,
like Donald Trump,
Reagan, who met and worked with Gorbachev. These issues of national security are incredibly important. I will meet with and do what is necessary to make sure that no more of our brothers and sisters in uniform are needlessly sent into harm's way fighting regime change wars that undermine our national security. I'll bring real leadership and experience to the White House.
I've got to respond.
Ooh. Ooh. Oh my God. Look, you can tell she been waiting for that. She was way in for that. And let's be honest, guys. He's kind of lucky because, like I said, when he was going on his tirade about his experience as mayor, Tulsi had her hand raised the entire time, and it looked like she was about to just wipe him off the face of the planet. Wipe his campaign. It was going to be over. It still might be over because, let's be honest, he acted like a child. But we're going to talk about the other statements first. Now, I love how she started her statement. Experience isn't enough. It needs to be the right experience because clearly both Tulsi and Pete Buttigieg have been in the military, and Tulsi still is in the military, and yet it seems that only one of them have actually learned from their military experiences and has empathy for the brothers and sisters in arms who actually have to go and, you know, die for somebody's cause that has nothing to do with them. It's about resources, generally. And Buttigieg has made it clear time and time again that he is more than willing to send innocent lives and put them at risk if it means propping up the American empire and ending innocent lives overseas if we need to in order to gather resources from other countries. But it's funny to me because if you listen to Rachel Maddow is trying to cut Tulsi off. You heard she said, thank you, because what Tulsi was doing was rattling off her credentials in comparison to Pete Buttigieg. Like, who are you to try and come at me or talk about experience? Because remember, this isn't the first time they've engaged. They engaged a little in the last debate too, and Tulsi got the better of him there as well. But this one, in my opinion, it was a more clear-cut victory. Point one for Tulsi Gabbard. She challenged him saying, look, you're talking about you have the right experience, but you're talking about sending troops to Mexico. He said that claim was outlandish. I got the facts. So we're going to find out how outlandish that claim actually was. Okay? So it was during an interview, and the original question was basically, if you were to, even in a cooperation with Mexico, would you deploy troops to Mexico? I'm going to read some context of the question so you get the full context of Buttigieg's answer. But, Mayor, specifically, do you see a time when troops can go into Mexico if Mexico welcomed it, for instance? Buttigieg. This is a scenario where we could have a security cooperation as we do with countries around the world. We all know what that means, right? Okay, now, I would only order American troops into conflict if there were no other choice. That's a lie. If American lives were on the line, and if this were necessary for us to uphold our treaty obligations. But we could absolutely be in some partnership role if and only if welcomed by the partner south of the border. In other words, he would send troops to Mexico if the partner across the border approved of it. Now, that might sound all well and good, right? You know, makes you feel, well, if it's cooperation, why? It's okay. Yeah, here's the problem with that. The moment we actually do need to go into Mexico, like, if we want to go into Mexico right now, there's a progressive in charge. It wouldn't happen. But do you know what we do to progressives when we want to go into your country or we need to go into your country for resources? We will overthrow your progressive. You don't have to ask us. Don't ask me. Ask Evo Morales. What happens when you have resources that we need and you won't let us have access to them? We will put somebody who will cooperate with us, who will allow us to send U.S. troops into your country. Believe that. And he said he would. The only caveat was that Mexico had to agree to it. Now, Buttigieg, in just true childish, petty, neoliberal fashion, decided to gaslight and say that Tulsi suggested that we were going to invade Mexico when Tulsi never suggested any such thing. And but that's, once again, how you know he was defeated. That's how you know. You just called Tulsi Gabbard a liar, and I don't know why you thought that was a good idea. Because you know what happens when you call Tulsi a liar. And like I said, she clearly wasn't lying. I just read your statement to you. But you know what happens next, right? You're going to attack Tulsi for meeting with the murderous dictator, that she doesn't have judgment for meeting with a good judgment for meeting with a quote unquote murderous dictator, quote unquote. And Tulsi knocked it out of the park. Oh, what you're saying is you a bitch, is what you're saying. I'm just kidding. That's not what you said. But what she did say, in all seriousness, oh, no, actually what you're saying is that you lack the courage to meet with people. And when I tell you, that is the biggest indictment. Like, damn politics as a person. You know how I know you're scared of an adversary? You know how I know you're scared of someone else? Because you will not meet with them face to face to tell them your grievance, to have them challenge you, and then you challenge them to see if you can reach an agreement, especially if it's in the pursuit of peace, right? If you got beef with somebody, if you're that passionate about it, then meet up face to face with them and we'll squash it however we got to. I would rather talk it out, but if we got to throw the hands, then we got to throw the hands. But I'm trying to make peace. But I can't know one way or the other if you were guilty of what I accuse you of unless I sit down with you face to face. If you're a president, especially the president of this country, you're going to have to be doing a lot of sitting down with a lot of people that you're probably not going to like. That's part of the job. And Pete Buttigieg has demonstrated that he is incapable of being the president. You have to understand, not only did he insult Tulsi for meeting with Assad, but in that same clip, he insulted Tulsi for meeting with Donald Trump at Trump's request. Leaving out the part where actually Tulsi convinced Donald Trump to pull the CIA out of Syria. And after that, she was subsequently banned from the Oval Office because, well, she was right. And then, of course, they beefed up the foreign policy warmongering officials within Trump's administration. You all recall, remember, Tulsi was like, hey, take the CIA out of Syria. It's stupid. These people are lying to you. Trump did it. And then remember, we launched Syria committed chemical weapons attacks the next, within a week or so. And then all of a sudden we had a reason to be back there and we had a reason to start attacking them again. But Tulsi was that persuasive that she was able to convince Donald Trump to consider reining in our involvement in Syria. And the foreign policy establishment that thinks exactly like you, that is echoing the exact same rhetoric you're echoing, is what convinced Trump to remain there and continue to destroy their nation. You are more of the same, Buttigieg, but more than anything else. If you could tell, Pete Buttigieg looked and acted like a petulant child, incapable of having a substantive debate. Because who does that? I mean, there are obviously politicians do this, but he was gaslighting. You couldn't respond to the substance of her points. So you say, I can't believe you're suggesting that we want to invade Mexico. Nobody said that. Literally nobody said that, Pete. Nobody said that. Nobody said that. And yet you're suggesting that someone said that. So you want to address that point. See, you invented a point that was never said and addressed that. I would say in cooperation, but nobody's talking about invading. That's wrong. We should never invade. You want to address a point that you made up, but nobody talked about, instead of addressing the point that Tulsi said, which is that you lack judgment if you're trying to send troops into other nations. We're not talking about military exercises. This is in response to drug cartels in Mexico, in response to going after drug cartels that, by the way, our intelligence communities prop up anyway. And it's showing once again that you are, along with the cooperation, you're once again okay with interfering. That's what they always use. They use, somehow, some third party has run amok in some nation that we need resources from, or we need control over. And then we end up there. We don't destroy the third party that we're supposed to be attacking. We end up funding them and giving them weapons. And then all of a sudden, we were there for the third party. We were there to take them out, but we end up trying to take out the government instead. Although we said we were there for the third party, it's the same playbook over and over again. Pete, you're a CIA asset. I shouldn't have to explain this to you. Okay? But look, I think my favorite part was when she says, I took from the example of JFK. I took from the example of presidents past who understood that the only alternative to meeting with a leader that you may even dislike, The only alternative to meeting with them is war, bloodshed, more death, more destruction, more wasted money, more wasted resources, less money and resources for the American people. When she said that, when she brought up that, Tulsi is the only candidate on this stage that can invoke JFK's name, and I'll take it seriously. The only one. Because only Tulsi is the only one that knows what it's like to have it all, to be promised everything, and quite literally, in JFK's case, have it all taken away from you immediately, the moment you stand up to the foreign policy establishment and to the intelligence communities. Tulsi's had it all taken from her politically, but only she can understand what that takes to break out of your conditioning as a politician and tell it like it is. Something you could learn from. And hey, Pete, just as a reminder, Tulsi outranks you, bro. So next time when you talk about her and talk to her, 1, remember her experience isn't just in DC. 2, remember her experiences overseas. And 3, and most importantly, when you refer to her, make sure you refer to her as Major Gabbard, Lieutenant. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Says Ukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you like that segment of Mikasa Says Ukasa. Of course, if YouTube is giving you trouble, as it always does, you can download the Rokfin app and follow us there. Also, if you want to continue to help our show grow, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon and donate as little as $1. Really, anything helps. Other than that, always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.